Who's the correct running back to start from the 49ers? Why has Allen Robinson had a career year while people are calling for Mitch Trubisky's head? And what do you need to know before you set your lineups in the first leg of the championship round? Plus, the 2019 Football Guys Players Championship regular season 13th place winner Charles Ellison hangs out with us to talk about whether streaming is dead, starting the correct players on deep rosters, and much more. We've got a great show for you. Dave Gerzak is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour starts now.
Everybody, if you got what it takes, because I'm KRS and I'm on the mic. And
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now listening to the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. It's the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for football analysis from the best fantasy players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak.
with the master rhymer, that's the lead behind the video rapper. You know the talk rhymer, tapper. Down goes another rapper, on to another matter. Punch up the data.
Thanks so much, Rob. Greetings and salutations to all of you Balkaholics and Gerzak fanatics. Welcome to the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, of course, presented by MyFFPC.com. I am your slightly above average host, maybe not tonight, Eric Balkman, and my co-host is the patron saint of fantasy football. He is the Dizzle. He is Dave Gerzak. Coming up on tonight's show, we're going to give you the latest on Le'Veon Bell's potential absence, why Sam Darnold might be the correct play over Drew Brees, and Charles Ellison drops by to talk about managing his 13th place team in the 2019 Football Guys Players Championship to the top for that $250,000 grand prize. Dave, we are here. It is December. The championship round is upon us. It began last night with a great, quasi-great Bears-Cowboys game. Thrilled that in the Blake Carrington Dynasty League, a league I have never won a playoff game, Dave.
All right, let's go. Hear it.
It was the best of both worlds. It was a tale of two cities. As I had Allen Robinson going.
It was the best of times, and it was the worst of times.
And the Cowboys defense going.
What, they got a 6?
Yeah, I think so. Not great.
I think I got like a 1 or a -1 in Kentucky.
Oh, really?
So it was the Cowboys and
Bears.
Yeah, one of them got a 1, one got a -1 in Kentucky.
Oh, okay. Who would you have started this week? Cowboys at Chicago or the Patriots against the Chiefs?
I probably would have gone with the Cowboys.
All right. I feel better about it now.
Yeah, I mean, I think you never know what Trubisky you're going to get. And last night you got the 35.55 fantasy points, Trubisky.
We're going to talk about him coming up in the show with Charles Ellison. Also coming up on tonight's show, we're going to get into no games tonight. We have a lot of start-sit questions for people who are wondering what they should do with their lineups or with the championship round upon us. So really playoffs in general. There's a lot of playoff stuff going on. And speaking of which, you can sign up for the FFPC Playoff Challenge, a $500,000 grand prize, $1.12 million prize pool at just $200 an entry. You can also register for the Football Guys Playoff Challenge. It's the first year that is going on. The FFPC and Football Guys combining on another great collaboration. $100,000 grand prize, $300,000 in that prize pool at just $35 an entry. If you can't get enough of Eric Balkman, hey, check me out on the High Stakes Lowdown podcast. rotoviz.com/podcast. You can also go to the Blue Wire Podcast Network, Apple Podcasts. Paul Friel, former WCOF, $200,000 winner back in 2005. We had him on this week. He's 12th place overall in the main event right now, so he's gunning for another six-figure grand prize.
That's awesome. Hey, dude, you remember back when high stakes contests had grand prizes of like $200,000?
Yeah.
That was funny way back then.
And that was a big deal.
I know that was a big deal back then.
Right.
But now, of course, all the premier contests have $500,000 grand prizes.
The FFPC has a $500,000 grand prize. The FFPC Playoff Challenge has a $500,000 grand prize.
I mean, $200,000 though should be the bare minimum for a high stakes contest.
I want to move on from this. Okay.
All right, I guess so.
Do we have any other announcements that we can make on the show tonight about another grand prize?
Yeah, I have an announcement to make.
Sure.
last
You're
week.
gonna keep it clean?
Last week in Gridiron Legends, the
Oh,
Dynasty League, I politely asked advice whether I should start Sam Darnold or Tom Brady, and both you and the guest gave me this great insight to start Sam Darnold.
Right.
And he scored, 12.85 fantasy points as I inserted him into the lineup. Brady scored 28.6, and you know what? That cost me a playoff berth. I didn't make the playoffs, and on top of that, I traded away my first-round pick for next year for Andy Isabella, so that's going to be a great trade. Okay, that was a bad trade.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I'm not blaming you or anything. It was my decision, but oh my goodness, I really blew it there.
Dave, I will say this. I am the highest-scoring team in said Dynasty League.
Yeah, in that league where you torpedoed my team, and now you're in the playoffs.
And if there's one team I did not want to face in the playoffs, it was Leroy's Aces.
Yeah, whatever.
Owned by the Dizzle.
You totally screwed me.
And I realized I can't beat this guy straight up. I have to bring in some malfeasance and skullduggery. And so I told you on the air, hey, start Sam Darnold. Didn't work out.
I trusted you.
I know, and that was your mistake.
The other thing we do have to cover, though, is, we do have the FFPC Playoff Challenge, which all playoff challenges should be at a $500,000 grand prize. Just kidding, because there's also the Football Guys Playoff Challenge,
Right.
which that one's a bargain based on $35 to enter and a $100,000 grand prize for first. We're having two playoff contests this year. We're working with David Dobbs and Joe Bryant, the great people at Football Guys. $100,000 grand prize for that one. And then we have the good old FFPC World Famous Playoff Challenge. $500,000 grand prize, over $1 million prize pool, $200 to enter. That one's a little bit more high stakes.
Right.
150 entry limit is the limit.
Oh, okay. That was my next question. So you can enter up to 150 times.
And you got to join now. I mean, these things are getting close to sold out. We're at 3.9% sold out for the main the FFPC one, and 4.79% on the Football Guys.
And okay, so you obviously you're kidding when you say that. Hey, it's going to sell it soon. But I will say this: once everybody gets their winnings from after week 16 and those get deposited in accounts, these entries will sell fast. So make sure you get your spot in now. Our guest tonight, Charles Ellison, is actually going to talk about the playoff challenge. He came close to winning it back in 2017.
Nice.
And he says it is his favorite contest that the FFPC offers.
It is super fun. I mean, it's a good time. And people actually, I mean, we didn't really announce this, not a huge deal, but if you want any $35 credits, you can use those for the football game.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
how about that?
Yeah, but those will be kind of released, so to speak, in week 16.
Okay.
But if you want one of those $35 leagues, you can take it. You have the option of taking $200 in cash and 4 $35 credits, which is a pretty sweet, prize option.
That is very sweet, very sweet.
I mean, it's much better than like $300 cash, in my opinion.
I totally agree. Totally agree.
All right, enough of the salesy stuff. But I mean, I actually believe all that.
Right, exactly.
You usually just try and sell it.
No, I'm trying to sell it because I believe in it. I believe in Harvey Dent, and I believe in this playoff contest.
I believe the Gridiron Legends League sucks.
I will agree with that if I don't win it. Thanks to Football Guys, Roto-World, and Rob for tonight's rundown. Dalvin Cook practiced today, according to Chris Thomason on Twitter. Dalvin Cook missed most of the Monday night game against the Seahawks with that chest injury, something he aggravated again in Week 13. It looks like he's going to be good to go this week. He's over 1,000 yards on the season. He should have a big week this week as he is going up against Detroit, who, if you remember, in earlier this year, 149 yards rushing, as well as 2 touchdowns. Dave, this is kind of interesting. How do you handle this Vikings situation? If Cook is active, you're obviously playing him. What if it's announced that both Cook and Madison are expected to share the carries? Would you start Cook? Would you start Madison? Would you start both?
I'd probably lean towards Cook. Unless there was just a hint more negativity about Cook, I would probably just go with Cook. I feel pretty decent about starting him, actually.
Okay. Fair enough. And when you say a hint more of negativity, if that hint existed, Dave, if it was out there, how would you handle it then?
Yeah, if they said something like, Dalvin Cook's going to play, but they're not sure how long he's going to go.
Or he's going to be on a limited snap count, something
snap
like
count
that.
Thing. Again, it gets really tough. I mean, it depends on who says it. So I don't know. At that point, I'm not sure.
Is there any chance that he's active but not the starter?
Yeah, there's always a chance.
Is it likely, I guess?
I don't think it's likely.
Okay.
I think he's going to play. I mean, he himself said earlier in the week that he sounded confident about playing. Which I found it a little odd that he left that game, but whatever.
He's a former Knoll. I have no qualms about him gutting it out for a 100-yard performance. I would play him if he's active.
Even though he didn't week for.
Matt Breida practiced in full for the second straight day yesterday. I got to get the practice update on him today. This according to NewOrleansSaints.com. Sounds like Breida's going to be back out on the field this week, which is good for Breida owners, or is it? Because Raheem Mostert looked really good last week. You have Tevin Coleman in this backfield, who has been the lead dog for most of the season. He wasn't last week. And then, still have Jeff Wilson going around there. Dave, how do you handle this 49ers running back situation? Is the easiest answer also the correct one, in that you just avoid it completely?
Yeah, I mean, I would. I wouldn't start Coleman. Breed is a tough start coming back off injury. I guess you could go look at Mostert, but if you're in the playoffs at this point,
you should have better options.
I mean, maybe not. I mean, maybe you do, maybe you don't. But I guess I would go with Radio Raheem, possibly.
Radio Raheem.
The guy I'd lean with.
What's that from again?
That's from Do the Right Thing.
Do the Right
Radio
Thing.
Raheem, love and hate.
Yes. Okay. Oh, that was Radio Raheem.
Yeah,
Got
that was like Spike Lee's only good movie.
Okay.
He's been living off that for 30 years.
He's had other good movies. Didn't he do Didn't he do Inside Man?
Who knows? Let's talk.
Higher Learning was good.
Yeah, that was good. That was pretty good.
Yeah, I liked Higher Learning. This is not on our rundown. I want to bring this up now. John Gruden said Josh Jacobs did not do much at practice today. He's officially questionable. Remember, Dave, he has this fractured shoulder, and it sounds like he's going to be a game-time decision. Guys that would be ready to step in, I'm sure, are not owned in a ton of places. However, waivers are closed, which is problematic for a lot of Jacobs owners. DeAndre Washington and Jalen Richard are going to be ready to go if Jacobs cannot play for the first time all season. Trent Brown's out at right tackle, so they're going to be running a backup there. How do you handle this Jacobs thing? If he's active, are you playing him? If they say, like, yeah, he's on the active roster, he's going to go, you got to play him, right? Or would you look elsewhere?
I would play him with a lot of trepidation. I mean, I don't want to play anyone with a fractured shoulder. I'm sorry, I just don't want to do it.
Right.
I don't feel like that'd be a good decision for the team to do. So I don't see why they'd put him out there. So I mean,
what are they playing for at this point?
Nothing. I mean, pride, really.
Yeah.
I mean, Gruden's got a long-term contract. What does he care? Yeah, I don't think they should play him. I mean, why would you risk this young man? He's a really good player.
Right.
Yeah, I think they should. And the fact they said he didn't do much means meaning that he's not going to play. That's the way I'd be leaning, that he's not playing, and look elsewhere.
This dynasty league I'm in, my top two running backs are James Conner and Josh Jacobs. Needless to say, I did not make the playoffs this year, and I'm not too worried about if he plays or not. But there's a lot of people out there that are worried if he's going to play. Raiders are home dogs this week, Dave, as they take on the Tennessee Titans. Total in that game, 47.5. They are 3-point underdogs. It is a 425 start. So if you are rolling the dice here, it is going to be quite the roll, because you are not going to have a lot of options if you choose. I think you got to look elsewhere at this point.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that's a smart call. Moving on here, Eli Manning. Oh, my God, it's 2019, and we're talking about Eli Manning. He is very likely to start against the Eagles on Monday night, according to Pat Shurmur, who, for now, is the Giants' head coach. Eli Manning, he is going to make that Monday night game a little bit more watchable. I can tell you, I was looking at a lot of my playoff matchups this week. Most of them are going to be decided Sunday night, Dave. Not a lot of skin in the game on Monday night between the Giants and the Eagles. Giants, maybe they try to win one for them. Maybe they try to get behind this two-time quarterback that sort of was attempted to be railroaded out of there.
And let's look at the offensive weapons Eli has, Balky.
Well, we should bring about this today.
List them off,
yeah,
baby.
For the first time this season, the Giants will have on the field all at the same time, for the first time in 2019, Saquon Barkley, Sterling Shepard, Golden Tate, and Evan Engram. Engram is supposed to be playing. Golden Tate is officially out of the concussion protocol. It looks like he's going to be out there. Eli Manning's a quarterback. Now you got a team. Seriously, though.
It's an I'm actually kind of interested in the spread on this one, because I usually give Farrell my one pick of the week, and I'm not sure. This is it's a 10-point. They're 10-point dogs. The Giants are. So I'm kind of interested in the Giants at +10 against it. The Schmeagles. They don't blow anybody out. It's a divisional game. I know it doesn't really technically matter. It doesn't matter for the Eagles. I mean, they're looking for a division title. Are they 5-7 and looking at a division title possibly?
Dave, yeah, that is correct. Right now,
it's the worst division in football.
Listen to this. Listen to this. Not only are they in the hunt for a division title, but the Cowboys are in first place in that division at 6-7. Mm-hmm. Now I want to run this by you. And this is insane, and I agree that it is insane. But I want to run this by you. Maurice Jones-Drew. NFL Network, Maurice Jones-Drew, former running back for the Jaguars, in the bold prediction segment for NFL.com, predicted that Dwayne Haskins would win his third straight game in Lambeau this week.
Yeah, +13.
No, he said straight up.
I know, but they are +13.
They are +13. Yeah. If that happens, Washington would go to 4-9, Dave, and they would be 2 games out of a playoff berth. The Washington Redskins, who fired Jay Gruden a month or so ago
Right.
are on the, well, I want to say they're on the cusp of the playoff. But, man, if they beat the Packers this weekend, and anything is possible, to quote Kevin Garnett.
Speaking of anything is possible, the Giants are technically not eliminated from the playoff.
Yeah.
They're 2-10, I think, and they could go 6-10 and win the division.
It's unbelievable how bad that division is. Too bad we can't flex out Monday night games. The only reason I bring this up, as far as, not necessarily with Manning, but as far as Barkley, Shepard, Tate go, are you doing anything differently with those guys than you would have been had Daniel Jones been the starter?
Well, from a fantasy perspective, I actually wish Jones was starting. I think he's a better quarterback.
I'll tell you who I don't. I agree, and I'll tell you who I'm glad.
Well, tell me.
Saquon Barkley, because Eli Manning's going to be throwing him about 15 targets
Probably
this game.
will. Probably
so
will.
That's great if you're a Barkley owner.
Yeah, I mean, I feel pretty good about starting Tate. I'm not really a big Sterling Shepard guy, so I think Tate might do all right. Ingram, if you're desperate, I could see starting him. But
I think you got to play him.
I don't think you got to play him.
I mean, tight end's kind of a wasteland. Let's do
It is. I mean, yeah. There's not a lot that are in that range. I mean, he's kind of like in that middle-ish to upper tier.
Let me do a quick would you rather here with.
Before you say anything, I'll just tell you, I would start Hunter Henry, Ertz, Kittle. I would start Austin Hooper ahead of him.
Yeah, I agree with all those. I was going to go a little bit deeper.
So yeah, and then who else is there?
Jack Doyle.
Okay, so that's in that general range of whatever, like right around there.
What about Jared Cook? Who is
Cook has a tough matchup.
Yeah, at home against the Niners.
I probably would still start Cook though, because he's been playing and he's been getting targeted.
Ryan Griffin at home against the Finns.
No, Griffin might miss.
Okay, all right. Gesicki in that same game.
Gesicki is interesting actually. Supposedly, I think Draft Shark said something about Jamal Adams missing or something, so I might start Gesicki. He's been really hot, and Fitzpatrick flings it all over the place.
We have a question regarding that later on in the show, so I don't want to spoil it. Last one, Vance McDonald at the Cardinals.
No, I'd start Ingram for sure.
Over Ingram, okay. All right. Oh, you would start Ingram over him. I got it.
Yeah, I would start Ingram. Rudolph, co-kid, wondering about Rudolph. Kyle Rudolph?
Yeah. I would play Rudolph over Ingram.
And Rudolph's at home.
He's at home against the Lions.
Thiel's going to miss again. I'd start
right.
Rudolph. Rudolph's been getting a lot of targets with Thiel now.
Or you don't listen to the ESPN Fantasy Focus podcast.
Of course.
Former FSGA Announcer of the Year, Field Yates, calls Kyle Rudolph. What
is he? It's a very German.
Oh man, it's just fingernails on the chalkboard every time I hear it. Hey, we got Charles Ellison coming up here, the 13th place team in the Football Guys Players Championship. Last thing I want to do before we get to him is talk about this Le'Veon Bell situation. Adam Gase says he is, quote, unsure if Bell is going to be available for the Week 14 game against the Dolphins, according to Manish Mehta on Twitter. Bell did not practice today. It's his second straight DNP, Thursday and Friday. Obviously, players usually gut out illnesses rather than injuries, or they're more likely to gut out illnesses over injuries. But Gase wouldn't say that Bell is going to be out there. They said Gase did say that the team would have more information on Saturday. Le'Veon Bell, when he's been healthy and out there, hasn't been great. 3.2 yards per carry this year, but he's been getting a lot of action. Bilal Powell and Ty Montgomery are behind him, Dave.
And they're playing the Dolphins.
Huge
faves.
Maybe
not that huge.
Obvious thing here is if Bell is active, you're playing Bell. If he is not active, are you looking at either Ty Montgomery or Bilal Powell as your second flex in an FPC or FFPC main event?
I would not be looking. I really would hope I would not be looking.
Even though it's against the Dolphins.
Well, yeah, even though it's against the Dolphins, I would hopefully have a better option because those guys, neither one of them can be trusted. Can you trust Ty Montgomery? Again, when you're in the
championship
round, you have 30 possibilities, right? Weeks 14, 15, and 16, you have 10 roster slots, 10 starters. You do not want to spend one of your 30 on a guy like Ty Montgomery. Powell I could kind of see, but I would not be enthusiastic about it.
Okay.
If you're really in dire straits, but I can't see someone winning $500,000 with Bilal Powell in Week 14.
Right. I'm with you.
It's possible. He could get a 20.
I'm going to throw one last thing at you here, and I don't think I'm going to change your mind, but I'm going to say it instead, or just in case. The New York Jets are 5-point favorites in this game at home against the Dolphins. Total on this game is at 46.
Yeah, I understand all that.
Okay, change your mind. That's fine.
They're not. I mean, that's actually not that great of a. It's not that big of a favorite.
5-point favorite in a game.
The Packers are 13-point favorites.
Right.
The Eagles are 10-point.
And by the way, the Packers are 13-point favorites. I think Jones and Williams are going to be great this week.
So do I.
Okay.
But I mean, those are legitimate players that legitimately scored points.
And the Jets
Ty Montgomery's are scoring like 1.5 points when he plays.
Right.
I mean, he's had weeks like that.
I'm with you.
All right.
I feel like I'm fighting. I'm
wasting time, and we should be.
No, I'm not. Yes, we're going to. I feel like I'm playing devil's advocate here because I am with you.
Yeah,
I can't, in good conscience start either of those guys. I can, in good conscience, though, bring on tonight's guest. He started small in fantasy football, playing cash leagues in fantasy 7 years ago, had some success, and he has been building on that success ever since. He typically likes to play between 10 and 12 redraft leagues. He actually cut back this year because of the birth of his daughter. Congratulations. He was in first place at one point in the 2017 playoff challenge before he faded during conference championship weekend. He's also added Dynasty to his fantasy football mix recently as well. Dave, this is good. You love him. He likes taking on orphans in Dynasty leagues and rebuilding them.
Well, you got about 500 coming this
year. Yeah. He enjoys that, but not as much as he enjoys entering the 2019 Football Guys Players Championship round in 13th place. Please welcome onto the show Mr. Charles Ellison. Charles, thanks so much for doing the show tonight, and welcome aboard.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Appreciate you coming on. So, I've never been this high in a championship round ever at this point. I guess I was in Kentucky, but you're talking about 300 or 400 teams. With this one, you're talking about 8,400 teams, Charles, and you're in 13th place coming into the championship round. This is probably the most excited, well, I mean, I guess outside of the playoff challenge a couple years ago, probably the most excited you've ever been about fantasy football at this point.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's been a wild ride all the way through the season. Started steady, and then things really picked up in the mid-range weeks, and we kind of been building from there. So, it's really excited to see what lies ahead for the next couple of weeks.
Charles, first of all, congratulations on the birth of your daughter. That is awesome news. And in addition to your family life, well, you don't have to tell us about your family life unless you want to, but what do you do as far as your work life when you're not playing fantasy football?
Yeah, so I work for a power company for about 6 years there. I served as the communications manager at a nuclear power plant. So that was a really interesting experience. And but these days I'm still with the company, but my role's changed. I primarily do change management, project management type work for us.
Well, so clearly in your mind and in the mind of many smart people, nuclear is a really great source of energy that people are too dumb to actually, realize should be used, right?
Oh, absolutely. True words never spoken. Very big proponent, obviously, of nuclear energy. Love those guys.
I mean, anyway, I get into a whole long, hour-long discussion about how nuclear energy is much safer and better. Anyway.
You know what's so funny? This speaks to the intellect differences between me and you, Dave, because he talks about working for a nuclear facility, and you think, oh, this is great, this is underutilized, we need to do this, and all I'm thinking about is, oh, this guy's just like Homer Simpson working for the Springfield nuclear power plant,
He goes real deep.
Yeah,
here.
oh yeah. I mean, listen, I bring the real on this show.
Actually, you know what? I do have a nuclear question for you. So
go ahead. Yeah.
Having worked in that
Sure.
field, did you watch the HBO miniseries Chernobyl?
I haven't seen it yet. Chernobyl's something we learn about a lot in nuclear, though. Anytime you join one of those power plants, you go through a lot of training. And part of that training is learning about lessons learned from past mistakes. So I am interested to see it, but right now I do well just to keep up with football and the kids.
Yeah, football and the kids. It is a good miniseries. I recommend it highly to anybody. Anyway, so let's talk football. So you're looking at $250,000. You're in 13th place. It was your only Football Guys team this year. You drafted on July 2nd. Draft early, people. What were your impressions of the squad, right after the draft? You're heading into Independence Day, and you're probably, changing diapers or whatever. But by the way, I wonder tell us if your daughter, you took her out to, fireworks or not. That's always a question. But yeah, tell us about your team too, and what you thought about it after the draft is over.
Yeah, so I felt really good about it. I know everybody thinks they've drafted a winner after the draft, and it's already counting those dollars and making room for the new trophy. But after every draft I do for my redraft teams, I always take time to do a little short write-up, kind of capture my thought process, so I can go back and review those notes at the end of the season to see where things went right, went wrong. When you only have one team you're putting in there, and it's a large field like that, I'm more prone to taking risk. I don't think a conservative way. I'm not just trying to win, obviously. The regular season league. I'm looking to win the whole thing. So to do that, I think you're going to have to be a little bit more risk accepting. And what I'm basically looking for there in the draft that I came into is I was looking for a range of possibilities with high upside. So, taking Gurley in the second, hoping for a bounce back year. Allen Robinson, Sammy Watkins, I thought both those had wide receiver one range of possibilities in their futures. Unfortunately, Sammy didn't pan out, but Allen's done pretty well for me. And the same goes for Hunter Henry. I thought he could be an upper tight end one range type player. As we continued to the draft, primarily was looking for is the kind of that same thing. Hooper, I was really big on him. I thought he was going to make the leap, him and Andrews. So I really wanted to make sure I got him. And then I went and took a quarterback a little bit earlier than normal. Went with Watson in the 8th. And, in these type of leagues, everybody's waiting later and later, but at a certain point it becomes a value proposition. And I thought Watson had a chance to really do something special this year, and he hasn't let me down. So that said, though, my biggest concern was pretty obvious. The running back was pretty light, and that was before McKinnon went on IR. And now I'm even lighter there, so I've been kind of scrambling to kind of fill that hole ever since.
So a lot of interesting points in that response. First of all, I think that the idea, I think you're probably Balky, we've had 400 plus shows. Are you maybe the first, or maybe, I don't know if someone else ever said anything, the first person that ever said they write notes actually after the draft? And
no, we've had other people
really?
say that, but
I was either drinking too much or not listening.
Or you were off that week. But to your point, Dave, they are few and far between.
But I mean, that's actually really interesting. I think it's smart because now you can go back. It's like you had Dear Diary, right? A little thing that you wrote up, and then you can look back. And if your team sucks, you're like, all right, well, what was I think? Why did I take this guy in the 13th round? Oh, I thought this. So that's really cool. And secondly, did you start A-Rob last night? Allen Robinson?
I did.
Oh, nice. You're see, out of his 30 spots, he already crushed one of them, Balky.
I'm not surprised. Not at all surprised. Charles, I do want to ask you because this draft was before Independence Day. You had actually talked about the importance of drafting early and how you plan on doing more of that next year. Talk about the advantages that you think that you get when you're drafting that early in the season.
Yeah, so I think if you're someone that's in it year-round at this point, which is where I'm at, you're picking up knowledge as you go through the off-season. And a lot of times folks are relying on, industry analysis and, talking heads and things of that nature to kind of guide the value point on each player. Well, the industry kind of comes to a consensus, and they're kind of a market is set. And by the time you get to mid to late August, it's really hard to find value based on ADP. The players just don't drop that far. The drafts really become almost like routine in a way. The earlier you draft, if you have some inside knowledge, you see something that you think you can take advantage of that the rest of the field hasn't caught up on yet, you can get some really great deals and, potentially actually foresee some of that value in your draft.
Yeah, see, I totally agree with that. And, the thing is, the early drafts have a lot – I will fully admit this. They have a lot sharper drafters. But even with sharper drafters, because the ADP is so fluid, you don't know where guys are going to go. I mean, someone may take DJ Moore at the 401, or he may go to the 504. I mean, who knows? It gets really – there's a lot of variance in that.
Oh, sharper drafters, because they are more heavily influenced in their own convictions rather than ADP.
They'll take their guys.
Stuff fluctuates quite a bit in that.
Right.
And sometimes, and I don't want to call out sharp drafters at that point of the season, but sometimes I feel like, and someone would probably fully admit to this, they outsmart themselves. They get a little too cute sometimes.
Well, I mean,
and I feel like sometimes when you do that, you'll end up kicking yourself. Sometimes as early as the day after the draft, like, what was I thinking? I should have stuck to what to my gut on this, and it doesn't always work out. So there is value to be gotten quite a bit, even when you're going up against very good, accomplished, high-stakes players.
Yeah, another thing you grab out of that is the.
Go ahead, Charles.
Yeah, another thing that really can help you out in those situations is in that fantasy offseason, the least little bit of news that comes across the waiver wire or the wire can really influence people. A coach gets up and says, he thinks, so-and-so's in the best shape of their life and they're headed towards a, 100-catch season. And you'll see a player's value swing dramatically just on that little bit of coach speak. So you can really, if you're good at kind of reading the tea leaves and figuring out what coaches really mean and, what's fact and what's fiction, you really have some opportunity there.
Yeah, and you're, Chris Godwin was an example of that. And
oh, totally.
And
yeah.
I mean, it worked out, and sometimes it doesn't, right? And I'm just going to mention a few players like David Hubbard. He's a really great player, but I think he, at some point during the offseason, he decided that Pollard was the guy that he was going to take from Dallas, and he took him, probably in 130 out of his 150 leagues that he drafted, and it didn't work out. In some years, it works out great. so in a way that can benefit a person if you don't give a shit about Tony Pollard. You're like,
right,
oh, what do I care?
Right.
So let him take them all the time. So, or Darrell Henderson was another player like
totally,
that.
yeah.
And he ended up doing nothing, but sometimes he ends up doing everything.
Yeah.
So it just gets really interesting that way. I mean,
we're talking with Charles Ellison, who's 13th place in the Football Guys Players Championship, heading into the championship round. Charles, let's talk about your quarterbacks here in Deshaun Watson and Dak Prescott. I'm curious, when you invest in those guys and considering the fantasy seasons that these guys have had, it's probably has not been the easiest decision in the world to know which guy to start, which guy to bench each and every week this year. What's that been like for you? And I'm also curious if you can give us your impressions of streaming not only the quarterback position, but other positions like tight end, too. Give us your thoughts on that when you answer this question.
Yeah, sure. The battle between Deshaun and Dak has been really tough. I've only actually gotten it correct 13 times, so it's been a little bit of a struggle. Fortunately, both those guys have performed at such a high level for the most part that it really hasn't hurt me too much. In general, my default was to take Watson over Dak whenever the matchups are even. I think Watson has more scoring potential and is just a better quarterback in general. But other than that, I'm looking at matchups and basically who's playing at home to really kind of see who has the advantage that week. And luckily, it's worked out a pretty good bit. In terms of streaming,
joining us. Go ahead.
Yeah, so in terms of streaming, one of the things that when you get up in these type of leagues that I think a lot of maybe new players can underestimate is when you're hearing fantasy analysis, the drumbeat is always to get a streaming quarterback, don't invest in a quarterback, and that's obviously true. It's a onesie position. It's easily replaceable, but it's not completely replaceable. Everybody's on the streaming bandwagon this time. That's not a new strategy at all. So if you come in and you think you're going to just be able to pluck, whatever the best matchup is of the week off your waiver, it's just not going to happen in most of these really competitive leagues. So you really kind of have to adjust your mindset. Back in the day, even 6-7 years ago when I first started in cash leagues, you could do that. You could literally just basically punt the position all together in drafts, and you just within the first couple weeks of the season pick up a really quality starter and ride that through. But now, when you're instead of streaming a guy that may have been ranked that week in the 10 to 16 range, a lot of times now if you're trying to stream, you're looking at guys that are ranked in that 16 to 24 range. You're backing quick QB2s, and you're getting into a much lower floor there if those guys don't pan out for you. So it's a strategy that I know everybody promotes, and I'm not saying it can't work, and it's definitely needs to be part of your arsenal, but you really have to be careful coming into seasons where if you think that's just what you're going to do, it just usually is not going to pan out.
Totally agree. I'm with you on that. The game has changed, and I think as you pointed out, Charles, the game's changed. You need to change your draft strategy too, along with it, Dave.
Yeah, I actually agree. That's why I'm looking at Lamar Jackson next year.
That's right.
Early, Volky.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, not that there will be a Lamar Jackson early next year, but I'm almost wondering if there's because I always like to target those quarterbacks in round 8. Well, I think he's going to go higher than that, though. You know what I mean? I think people are. You don't think so?
8 or 9?
Higher than 8 or 9, yeah.
We'll see. I'm not sure.
I'll tell you what. Whoever I draft next year, he's going to have to be able to run. Josh Allen. That's who my guy is going to be next year.
Josh Allen's going to be cheap. He'll still go in the 10th round.
Totally. That's who my guy is going to be.
He's going to move up to the 10th round.
Yeah. Speaking of the AFC North, Dave, or AFC East, excuse me.
Yeah, either way, well, the Chiefs aren't in the North.
No, they're not. But Stephon Gilmore is in the AFC East.
So Stephon Gilmore is, bulky preview that is likely to be shadowing Tyreek Hill this week. Sammy Watkins, he had a 0 last week. He had 3 targets against the Raiders in a blowout win. But oddly enough, the score in that game was 40-9. But the Chiefs only had 259 total yards of offense. They had 175 passing yards. Watkins only had 3 targets and 0 catches. But it was a game where they didn't do a whole heck of a lot. But against the Patriots, great pass defense, they may not do a heck of a lot anyway. But would you actually consider throwing Sammy Watt into your lineup here in Week 14?
No, I'm staying away from Sammy. I think Sammy's pretty much done for this season. Looking at his usage and output, and he's only been over 50 yards receiving once in the last 9 weeks, and he hasn't scored since Week 1. And that was even with Tyreek missing some time there.
Yeah, sorry about that. Who gave us this question? What I should have asked is, Charles, you have Sammy Watkins on your team. Did you cut him tonight?
Well, you can't cut him anymore.
Why not?
Well, because the waivers are locked.
Oh, that's right. I'm thinking of like classic leagues.
Right. Yeah. You can't. Well, you could cut them in classic leagues for sure.
Hey, Charles, if you want to cut them, just email me. You can have a 19-team roster.
Hey, this is a question for both of you guys. Charles, I'll let you answer this first. If you guys both don't like Sammy Watkins, which to me I think it's clear that you don't, is Kelsey gonna have a big week this week? Who's gonna be the guy for the Chiefs? I mean, is it still gonna be Tyreek Hill? Because somebody's having a really good fantasy week. Charles, who do you think it is going to be for Kansas City this week?
Oh, I like Kelsey a lot this week. I think Tyreek will be pretty much blanketed, and I think Kelsey will step up and kind of fill the void there. And I hate to buy into the hype, but I think Darwin is a decent dart throw. Got the fresh legs theory going on there. I think if he can get 10 carries and 5 targets, I think he could provide a serviceable flex day.
Yeah, I actually like that analysis.
You like Kelsey too, Dave?
Well, the Darwin Thompson is an interesting little option. I think I
have him going. You know where I have him going?
Hopefully in a deep draft expert.
Scott Fishbowl.
Oh, for God's sake.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Keep doing well, so I'm going to keep setting a lineup.
Good for you. If you're still alive, good for you.
Yeah, whatever. So I think I had Darwin Thompson going there. But you like Kelsey this week as well as Darwin Thompson?
I mean, who gives a crap? You're starting Kelsey if you have him.
Right. Yeah, obviously that's the case.
You're still going to start Tyreek Hill if you have Tyreek Hill, most likely. I mean, not in every single
format,
but
I feel like
some of
remember the people you talk about drafting early, the people who got Tyreek Hill in like the 9th or 10th round when it looked like he was going to be his career might be done. Those people, you might have a better chance of having a better guy than Tyreek Hill on your roster at this point.
Was he really going that late? I thought it was 5th or 6th.
No, it was insanely late. There's probably about a 2-week period in the FPC where he was going. Yeah, it was bad, and then he got raised back up again. But we're talking with Charles Ellison, 13th place in the Football Guys Players Championship. Let's talk about running backs here. Aaron Jones has carried you through parts of the season for this team, Charles. Todd Gurley's underwhelmed as your second-round pick. How have you been able to get good enough running back production to keep you as high as you are in the Football Guys Players Championship, given sort of the underwhelming year Gurley's had?
Duct tape and glue, basically. Really had to grind out that position. And I can't say that I've done it successfully. That hole has not been filled, and it really put me in a tough spot because I've been chasing running back support all season. I've been picking up attrition plays, a couple of hoping for some random signings. I got a couple of veterans still on my roster that have very limited upside with Chris Thompson and Frank Gore, but at least I know they have something of a role, or at least Gore did a few weeks back. So it really hasn't worked out. Where I've really been able to make it up is just grinding with my wide receivers and tight ends. Starting Hooper and Henry when they're both healthy has really been beneficial. And then, there's a lot of little things. When you get in this competitive format, every little point counts. So streaming my kickers, basically my starting kickers have scored 118 points, which is good for number 5 overall. So I got a bit of advantage there. And picking up the Pats D, of course, was a huge benefit. But even there, I've streamed a couple of different defensive time. And so I've actually outscored the Pats D. So my number 1 defense starting is actually higher than that. So just getting these little points everywhere you can, just really fighting and grinding for it is how I've tried to make up for it. But I'm really thin, and it's like I said, duct tape and glue.
Kickers and defenses matter, Dave. This is the clearest example of it.
Yeah, Charles should start a website called like Duct Tape and Glue and have it just be about kickers and defenses.
DuctTapeandGlue.com.
That's not bad. I mean, because I would actually subscribe because I love streaming those guys, and then you give like a 2 to 3 week look ahead, and then the playoff kickers.
Oh yeah, for like who to roster. Yeah, that's good.
Start popping those guys on right away. So, you get these crappy guys, like your 8th wide receiver. Well, you don't need an 8th wide receiver. It's fine.
This idea, it's big. It could be bigger than DFS.
You're welcome. Go to GoDaddy. Somebody go to GoDaddy.
The next big thing in fantasy football: kicker and defense websites.
Just by the way, I will. As much as we all tank on Gurley a little bit, he is a number.
11?
Number 15 running back
15?
right now.
Okay.
So he's not returning fantastic value, but he's just maybe a little bit underperforming.
If you took him in the early 3rd round, you're probably pretty happy with the performance.
Yeah, you're kind of okay. What do you think, Charles? He's kind of all right.
Yeah, actually, I've seen games this year where I thought Gurley looked pretty good. I think the offensive line is really hurting them to a large extent. But with Gurley, it depends each week what version you're getting of him. But that offensive line is really setting them back.
Well, the team hasn't done as well either. So, I think that Todd McVay. This guy's got an angel halo
Sean.
over his head. Whatever the hell his name is. I'm calling Todd.
Was that the guy?
I'll call him Todd McVay because he's not as good of a coach as he thinks he is.
That wasn't that the dude who did the bombing in Oklahoma City? Todd McVay? No, it's Timothy McVay. Timothy McVay. Yeah.
Oh man, this show's a mess, Charles.
We thought we were
going to
get into this tonight,
but now you do. So let's ask you about Allen Robinson. You started him last night. He's been crushing it. He had 2 touchdowns last night. What do you think? I mean, you must be. What do you think about him? I don't even know what this question is supposed to ask. I mean,
well, I guess that.
What do you think about Allen Robinson, other than the fact that he's awesome in spite of his quarterback?
Well, exactly, and so this is something that we look at of not necessarily that Robinson is.
Let's look from a dynasty perspective. How about that?
You could do it from that perspective, not necessarily that he's quarterback proof, Dave, but the fact that his quarterback everybody has just hated on the majority of the season, yet Robinson is producing as an elite wide receiver, and I think that does speak to his talent.
And Charles, before you speak, let me just pipe this in. In a dynasty league I'm in, a private league I'm in, I have a playoff caliber team, so it's like, my pick. I traded away my 2020 first, and it's probably pick 9 through 12 or whatever it is, for Allen Robinson this year, and I actually feel pretty good about that trade. What do you think about it?
Oh yeah, I love that trade. I think you're getting a proven player with Robinson, and now that he's settling in Chicago, and hopefully Trubisky, can continue some of this improvement. I think you got a dynamic player there that really comes through when you're needing him in terms of being matchup proof. He's going to have his down weeks, but overall, really solid pick. And that 2020 draft class, I know everybody is just foaming at the mouth for that thing, but I've never seen a draft class that by the time you got to the 10th, 11th, 12th pick, you weren't starting to see some flaws. No matter how deep it is, I think by the time you get there, if you're a contender, I think Robinson's a much better pick.
Hey, Charles, as long as you're talking about the 2020 draft class, are you a Clemson fan by any chance?
No. I went to grad school at Penn State and University of South Carolina.
Okay, that's cool. Let me ask you about this. I was going to ask you about T. Higgins, but let me ask you about KJ Hamler. Do you follow him at all?
I haven't seen him, no.
Okay, all right. Yeah, he's not a first-round pick. He'd be probably like a second or third-round pick right now from Penn State. I was just kind of curious about him. But the receivers in this 2020 draft class, I don't want to say they're historic because I said they were historic a couple of years ago, and they totally flamed out. So you never know with this. But we'll get into much more dynasty chat coming up in the HSFF Hour in 2020. Getting back to the Football Guys Players Championship round, or the FFPC main event, I think Damian Williams did get ruled out today, did he not?
Yep, he's out.
Damian Williams is out. Darrell Williams on IR. LaShawn McCoy, Darwin Thompson. As a flex in leagues, if you own either one of these guys, you kind of answered this already with Darwin Thompson. Any love for Shady McCoy as a potential flex start this week?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think Shady's flexible. If you don't have, obviously, I wouldn't say it with a lot of confidence. The New England defense has been pretty stout, but anytime you get a piece of that Chiefs offense, the New England defense is good, but they're not, the 86 Bears or anything. I think they do have some vulnerabilities. So I think I would roll the dice with Shady, but actually I really like Darwin in terms of like that flex option. He's got, again, the fresh legs. He gets in there. He hasn't been beat on all season. And if you can just, you're counting on the little bit of volume that he could see, and if he can just get, a couple of carries and say 5-6 targets, I think he could really, turn into a serviceable flex stack.
All right, I think this question will be fast, but Marlon Mack is expected back. Is he the only Colts running back fantasy owner should consider starting, or is Nyheim Hines an option, or any of the other clowns? Players.
I think you're down to, if you're considering Hines, you're in pretty bad shape at this point in the season. I don't feel good about either one of those. Yeah, that Tampa run defense has been solid, and Hines really just hadn't got the volume. So it's not a very interesting play there. I think you're better off shooting somebody with a higher ceiling.
Charles Ellison, 13th place in the Football Guys Players Championship, joining us on the HSFF Hour tonight. Got an email here from Chris in Fort Myers, Florida. He writes, Charles, who would you start this week at Flex? It is the playoffs for me, so no pressure. I had been starting Sony Michel, but am I overthinking it if I put James Washington in instead? That's Chris in Fort Myers, Florida. Thank you so much for the email, Chris, we have Sony Michel obviously taking on the Patriots, taking on the Chiefs this week. James Washington is at Arizona. Assume full PPR here. FFPC scoring. Who would you play, Sony Michel or James Washington at flex this week, Charles?
Oh, I'm taking James Washington there. I think he has a pretty good matchup. He's facing the Cardinals. They've been torched repeatedly all season, and one of the great things with Pittsburgh is that zero faith in Vance. So unlike other teams where you would expect to lose some of that production to the tight end because they do so well against the Cardinals, I don't see that happening this week with Vance McDonald. So James is hot. Now that's definitely the route I would go. Sony Michel, they're just counting on a goal line touchdown to help you out. And at this point in the season, that's just a huge risk. I think I'd rather roll the dice with James.
Dave, you had brought up, we talked about James White last week. You and I both benched him in a lot of leagues. Well, I benched him in a lot of leagues. You benched him in one.
Yeah, follow James White.
Okay, so talk about your theorem here that you told me about starting James White.
Well, if it's a game where the Patriots have I should have thought about this more, but even the slightest bit of chance of falling behind, which it could be this week, you got to roll James White out.
You told me if they were 3-point dogs to 3-point faves, James White has to be in your lineup, right?
Well, 3-point faves or worse, right? Or it's a 3 to 10-point dog, whatever. Any Patriots are never 10-point dogs.
Right.
But yeah, any time where there's a chance they fall behind, road games especially, because it's more likely they fall behind. It's so funny. If I could imagine the email. This is an aside. We'll keep you longer, Charles. But if I was, David Dodds, this guy's, or the guys from Draft Sharks or wherever. Right. You're writing projections every week. So James White, 2 weeks ago, your projection was probably 12.9. And what did he score? A 0.9. Right. Then the next week, you're like, 12.8 or whatever. 37.
Yeah.
How the hell do you project this guy? It's so annoying.
Right.
And I'm sure people are emailing him like, you guys are the worst. You can't project, James White to save your ass or whatever. It's like, you guys are terrible. Anyway, that's my
the reason I bring it up, Dave, is the Patriots are at home this week against the Chiefs. They are only a 3-point favorite. So thus, your theorem would say start James White.
Well, there's a 40% chance that the Patriots fall behind, and maybe a 20% chance that they fall behind by 2 touchdowns or more. And all of a sudden, it's the James White show.
Could be a big James White week this week.
Struggling a little bit, the Patriots.
Yeah, and I'm with Charles. I'm with you. I would really, really hesitate before I click start on Sony Michel this week. The other thing I'm going to bring up, last thing on James White, my local fantasy football show, Dave. We have to pick a bust of the week, a start of a sleeper of the week, a pickup of the week. And I always look back on it on Tuesday to see how I did. My sleeper of the week last week was Devontae Parker, who obviously crushed it.
He killed it.
I'm thrilled. Then I was like, oh, this is going to be great. And then I looked at my bust of the week last week.
James White.
And it was really bad. And I was like, let's just move on from that. I don't want to talk about it at all. Can we ask our favorite question to Charles here?
Charles, thanks so much for your time. You've been fantastic. Bucky at the end of the interview is going to tell you how he's rooting for you and no one else. And then he's going to say that's
which is totally legit.
So the same thing that people in week 15 and 16.
No,
anyway.
I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say it.
So give us a player Actually, you know what? I'm going to ask you a couple questions because you play Dynasty too. So a player that FFPC players will be starting but should bench, first of all. And then a sleeper that should be started. This is just for week 14. And then if you have a Dynasty sleeper you want to give me, I don't play FFPC Dynasty. It's not allowed. So I'm going to use it just personally. So I'll take your advice, Charles. And it can't be a kicker or defense. So go ahead.
Sure. So the player that I would bench, it's really hard to do it because I've used him in several leagues, and I'm a big fan of his because he's just so consistent this year, is John Brown. He's usually super reliable, but they're facing Baltimore, which has the 9th rated adjusted fantasy adjusted points allowed to wide receivers. And basically what I'm seeing there is a game script where both teams are content to run. Buffalo does allow a pretty good bit of rushing, and that falls right into the wheelhouse of Baltimore. I can see both teams kind of grinding this thing out, especially late in the year. And I'm really worried that Brown just won't get the targets to perform. So he's somebody actually legitimately having a couple of leagues I'll be bowing.
Interesting.
In terms of start,
all right.
In terms of starting, Zach Pascal, it's that time of season where we're really starting to scrape the bottom of the barrel for some of these guys. But with injuries, the TY being out and playing that Tampa Bay defense, I could definitely see him putting up a big enough number to really justify a starting role. And then if you want to go,
what do you think about
this week?
Go ahead.
Yeah, you've only get super deep, and this is probably more of a daily play, and this is probably the one most likely to just completely bust out on me. But John Ross, he's back off of injured reserve. It's a long time ago, but he actually torched Seattle and San Francisco the first 2 weeks of the season. Andy Dalton's back starting. I think it's a Hail Mary play, but if you're in one of those situations where somehow or another you still have him on your roster, and maybe the Thursday game didn't work out for you, I could see where he's worth at least a prayer. But that's deep desperation there.
All right. What about Dynasty? You have any fun Dynasty sleepers for me?
Like, wait, hold on. When you say Dynasty, when you frame this as Dynasty, people to pick up?
Yeah, somebody that you think is maybe available as a free agent, or somebody you like that's going to be a rookie that's coming out this next year. Whatever you want. I don't really care.
Yeah, I like the Dallas tight end, Blake Jarwin. I think he's a great, easy pickup that you can get for basically nothing. I think he's a good stash play for next year. He's probably one that's definitely on my radar especially in tight end premium leagues.
Blake Jarwin, I like.
Blake Jarwin. Okay, good stuff.
Also, Paris Campbell's interesting. He's coming back for the Colts, and he's going to be active this week.
Yeah. Did you see Sigmund Bloom from Football Guys actually brought this up, Dave? The available pass catchers, receivers that Indianapolis had last week at their disposal, none of them was a draft pick. All of them were street free agents or undrafted free agents.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that unbelievable?
It sure is.
Yeah, and really
imagine they could have had a great player like Dante Moncrief still on the roster.
At least he would have been drafted. Hey, Charles, you've been very gracious with your time. I want to sneak in one more question before we let you go. Number one, actually two questions. Number one, are you planning on jumping into the FFPC Playoff Challenge again this year, given how close you were to the gold a couple of years ago? And then for anybody who's thinking about jumping into high-stakes fantasy football next year, maybe somebody like you, more than a half decade ago, started off small and worked your way up, and certainly you've had a lot of success. What's something that maybe you'd like to say to yourself, 7 years ago, or something that you would say to somebody jumping in now, the best advice you could give them?
Sure. So let's start with the Playoff Challenge League. Absolutely love that format. That's probably one of my favorite challenges to get into. Just love the contest. The combination of trying to predict the NFL real playoffs, along with taking into account the Super Bowl bonus, just a really fun format, and it wild swings, and that's always fun. So that league, literally, I went from being at first, and then with 3 games left, and then by the end, just really definitely far out of any serious money, but a wild ride there, and that's just a really fun league. So I'd recommend that for anybody. And with the new $35 leagues, that's a really great way to jump in and get your kind of feet wet. In terms of joining high stakes or just really playing for a little bit more cash, the biggest thing I would suggest to people, you only have so many football seasons. Let's make the most of them. If you find that you're doing well against in your friends and family league and you've got some disposable income, I recommend to anybody. I found that it makes things more interesting. And from my experience, I haven't done this 7 years, really and truly, up until if you're in the 100 to 250 range for your leagues, the skill level of the players is about the same. There really isn't a huge change in that range of outcomes. So I think you can, if you're pretty confident and you're into it and you're putting in the time and the effort, I think you can experience some success there. Really, once you get around the 500s, where I see the skill level, in my experience, is going up with the other players. So there's something there for everybody, and like I said, I think it just makes it more fun, and I wouldn't be intimidated at all. When I first got started with FFPC, it's definitely seen as a more serious format and platform, and it's easy to get intimidated. But once you get into it, you realize, hey, it's just everybody's just doing the same thing. They're grinding, they're researching, and if you're putting in the time, you might as well make it worth your effort. So that's kind of my pitch.
I think that's a popular opinion for a lot of people when they jump in to the FFPC or the FPC. They say, I was a little intimidated at the start, but I realized I can hang with these guys, and not only can I compete, I might be able to win one of these leagues right away.
Well, it's not like poker. I don't think it's like where you start off. If you're playing 50-cent dollar or $1 or $2 no limit, and you go to 5-10, 10-20, or and then like 20-40 or higher. There's a huge difference in the skill level.
Right. Yep.
I just don't think it's like that in fantasy. I really don't, and I agree. So I agree with what Charles is saying 100%. And to be honest, I think once you get to like the $5,000 to $10,000 entry leagues, I think it gets a little bit worse because you get a few people that are clearly just rich.
just want to spend money.
Don't give a crap.
Yeah, no, you're right.
So if you have the means, those aren't bad to get into. They sell it early.
Yeah, I never played above 500, but my theory is that I think that probably is like another tier. And once you get around, I played 500, there's a noticeable jump there, but I imagine it probably levels off at that point, and it's, you have another tier of players. So really, if you're below that, like I said, if you're willing to put in the time and you enjoy it, and you've had some success, especially if you've had some success in your friends and family leagues, there's after a while you just lose fun and beating up on your cousin that doesn't follow it after week 3. So you might as well put a little skin in the game and have some fun with it. Like I said, we only have so many seasons in us, so let's make the most of them.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And we are expecting the most of you this year. This is quite the run that you were on, almost to the mountaintop of the Football Guys Players Championship. Want to wish you the best of luck the rest of the way there, Charles, in all your leagues, your dynasty leagues, everything. Hope the ball bounces your way, and I certainly want to thank you for coming on the show tonight. And it was really good talking to you. A lot of entertaining stuff, a lot of informative stuff, and hopefully we'll talk to you again real soon, dude.
Hey, man, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Charles Ellison, ladies and gentlemen, I should mention you should follow him on Twitter at Charles Ellison, 13th place in the Football Guys Players Championship, and he will be a formidable foe as we move forward in the championship round here. That's going to be over with in 3 weeks, 3 short weeks. It's all going to be decided. $500,000 will be given away in the FFPC main event, $250,000 in the Football Guys Players Championship, and over $5 million in prizes between just those 2 national contests alone. All right, let's get into some emails. We've got about 5 minutes left in the show. I think we can fly through this here pretty well. Let's get into Jimmy in Teterboro, New Jersey. Dave, kick things off with him.
Teterboro, there's an airport there.
Is it really? Teterboro?
Yeah, in the movie Sully, that one of the options was to have him fly to Teterboro, but he said not going to get there.
Hey,
so he crashed in the river.
Speaking of Sully, did you or are you planning?
Yes, I saw it and it was really good.
No. Did you or are you planning on seeing the Mr. Rogers movie with Tom Hanks?
I don't see the point in seeing the Mr. Rogers movie.
And what does that mean?
Okay, so Mr. Rogers is a nice guy, and he had this show. What am I watching? What the hell do I care?
This is based on a book about a writer who did a story on Fred Rogers.
Okay, what's the conflict?
I think this guy had some issues going on in his life.
Mr. Rogers did?
No, the guy who was doing the story on Fred Rogers. He was assigned to, and he was not thrilled with getting this assignment. And then he actually had a conversation with him, interviewed him, and talked about life and stuff, and came away with a brand new perspective on life after talking with them.
Okay, so
I believe that is the gist of the story.
So the conflict is man versus himself, the author of the story?
Played by the dude who was in The Americans. You ever watch that show?
No.
Okay.
And that's not interesting to me.
I can't remember his name.
No, that's not interesting to me, to have his own internal conflict about the nice guy who has a show on PBS or whatever this show was, whatever it was on.
Yeah, I don't
know. I don't want to see it. I'd rather see the James Jewell movie that Clint Eastwood directed.
Richard Jewell.
Whatever.
Yeah. James Jewell, doesn't he play FFPC?
See, I'm getting all the names wrong. Well, this is so great.
It's so funny.
So Biff Jewell, this guy, he does this. He did the bombing, and then they didn't do it. I feel like Joe Biden tonight. I'm getting everything wrong.
I think that first of all, you're right. I would much rather see the Richard Jewell movie than the Mr. Rogers. I don't have any plans on seeing it. But
are you seeing the Mr. Rogers movie?
No, I'm not. And which is weird because I always remember. One of the things from memories from my childhood is when I was a kid, I would get lunch. My mom would serve me and my brothers lunch, and we'd watch Sesame Street while eating lunch.
At what age?
I don't know.
13?
Yeah. I was in my 30s. But we would watch Sesame Street during lunch, and then after lunch, we would watch Mr. Rogers, and right after that, we'd take a nap. This is way back. No, it wasn't boring. I actually enjoyed Mr. Rogers.
I did not like it.
Get it back to it here.
By the way, we have a bet to go. We have a bet we're doing.
Oh, what? Yeah, I meant to bring that up. What's the bet here, so I can announce it? Ian Thomas, the tight end from the Panthers.
Against two-packer and wasp guy. We're taking the under.
Two-packer and wasp guy.
I
and it's me and you?
I swear the number was higher earlier, and they keep on moving it down now.
Okay. So what?
Originally, wasp guy said 10.5. Football Guys has the projection at 7.9. Give them 9.
So Ian Thomas has to score more or less than 9.
9.1 is greater than 9. All right, so 9. Fine, 9.
So we have over or under?
We have under 9.
Okay, we have under 9
in
week 14.
Just regular PPR.
Okay. Oh, regular PPR.
I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Actually, wait. Is there? Hey, people in the chat room. Is this FFPC?
I would assume it's FFPC scoring. I mean, what?
Yeah, Olson's out. This is like a no-brainer.
Did you? Trivia question. After Greg Olson got hurt last week, how many catches did Ian Thomas get?
You're asking me?
I'm asking you.
I own 0 shares of Ian Thomas.
I know the answer to this.
And how many? What was the question?
How many catches did Ian Thomas get? 4.
Oh.
4. How many? 4.
All right.
4.
Wasp got the excessive scoring. And if you don't want excessive tight end scoring, RT Sports is really a great platform. They have really nice, good. Their marketing is excellent. They're good.
All right. Moving on.
All right. Excessive scoring is.
So we have under 10
yeah,
for
we'll take
excessive
under 10.
scoring.
Yeah,
okay.
It's our excessive scoring.
Under 10 FFPC. They have over 10. And I believe that we have 5 on it, Dave. Thank you, Lunas. We're going to actually answer Jimmy in Teterboro, New Jersey's question now. Tough call for me this week. If Connor misses, which is he officially out?
Who knows?
He
sucks.
He's going to be missed.
Terrible.
Do I play Benny Snell over Kareem Hunt as my second running back? Thanks, dudes. That's Jimmy in Teterboro, New Jersey. Dave, who are you playing? Kareem Hunt or Benny Snell?
It's actually a pretty tough question because Benny Snell is going to get all of the rushing production, but not much passing.
Yeah, right.
And
Benny Snell is at Arizona. Kareem Hunt is at home against the lowly Bungles.
So I think Pittsburgh's favored by 3 on the road at Arizona, and I believe that Cleveland is favored by 7 at home against Cincy. So
Pittsburgh is a 2-point favorite on the road at Arizona. Right. And what was the other one?
Cleveland's at home. They're 7-point favorites against Cincy.
Yes.
So there's a chance of a blowout there. So that you get limited usage out of Hunt. And if they're not passing, because they don't have to pass as much because they're winning by a lot, they might just run Chubb into the ground.
Right.
Having said that, I think I might. Yeah. I still might have to go Kareem Hunt here. Actually, I don't know what it is about Benny Snell for me.
Yeah, he's got that stigma with him. That the fact that he doesn't catch passes. I think Jalen Samuels still factors into it. Razor thin for me. I am going to go Kareem Hunt. Can I ask you another question about Kareem Hunt?
Sure.
Would you be looking to acquire him in Dynasty this offseason?
If the price was right, sure.
What is the price? Would you give up a second-round pick for him? Bear in mind.
I'd consider a mid to late second for sure. I would.
Is he not a free agent after this season?
I think so. I'm not totally sure.
Because if the way he's going right now, Dave, he's earning some money. He's keeping his nose clean.
Yeah, he's playing great.
His contract, he is a restricted free agent after this season. Somebody's going to pay him. And I think it's going to be somebody who does not take a running back in the draft.
I don't know if Cleveland. I think Cleveland keeps him up. A restricted free agent. What do they? Did they just do the thing where they sign a tender and what's he do? Not sign it?
I don't know.
I don't know how all that works.
I don't know either.
Hey Farrell.
I still think he's an interesting.
I know. I agree. I totally agree. He's a super talented player. Great running back. He's a 3-down back.
Yeah, he is.
And any team that needs a running back. This is a deep draft coming up with running backs and receivers. So
deep. I thought it was high end for running backs. I'm kind of walking that back a little bit. There's DeAndre Swift. There's Jonathan Taylor.
I think there's a lot of play. I think you're going pretty deep in this draft. So I'm just saying.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It's not top heavy. I think it is deep.
Yeah. Okay. So I do think that giving that up, but I mean, Kareem Hunt's in his prime, and yeah, he's a proven back. He's a proven 3-down back. I think you would do well to get him for a second.
I believe I have 3 second-round picks in the Blake Harrington Dynasty League. Anybody who owns any of them, or anybody who owns Kareem Hunt in that league, I would be happy to give you one of those second-round picks for Kareem Hunt. Chris in Fort Myers, who would you rather start? Oh, excuse me. We already did this one with Charles. Hey, guys.
Or Hollister, how about?
Dustin in Birmingham, Alabama. Hey, guys, I've been playing the guessing game all year at tight end, but I feel like I have 2 good choices this week. Should I start Mike Gesicki or Jacob Hollister? Thank you, Dustin in Birmingham, Alabama. Dave, we kind of got into Gesicki at the start of the show. Who would you rather play this week? Gesicki, who I believe is at home against the Jets? No, he's at New York this week.
At the Jets, +5.
And Hollister is at the Rams, so they're both on the road.
I would start Gesicki.
I would, too. I think that's the play.
Fitzpatrick, he throws it a ton.
Ryan Fitzpatrick.
They're going to be down. I think Jasicki's really emerging. He's another great dynasty acquisition play. Although most of his owners, I think, are realizing he's not fully valued yet. And he was a great athlete coming out. He just did poorly as a rookie, and it sounds like he's developing the skills to play tight end in the NFL. So good for him.
Aye, if you drink a pint every time Ryan Fitzpatrick throws to the tight end, you'll be pest drunk by the second quarter.
That was really good.
I think that's a play. Gesicki over Hollister this week. What about Hollister?
It's a lot more fun.
Hollister in Dynasty, do you not like him as much because of the existence of Disley?
Yeah, also his name it's like an Abercrombie. It's Abercrombie or Hollister. Where are you buying your shirts from? I don't want to buy them at Hollister.
I always get my tight ends at Jacob Hollister. It's a great tight end. Gotta have him on your team, brah. You want to win? You got to get Jacob Hollister. Give up a first-round pick for that, dude.
It's in the Hollister. It's in the pennies wing.
It is. Yeah, there you go. Bobby in Springfield, Mass. Which road warrior receiver do I go with? DK Metcalf at the Rams or Zach Pascal at Tampa? Charles was talking up Zach Pascal. Sounds like T.Y. Hilton's going to be out this week, Dave. Who'd you rather play, Metcalf or Pascal?
I think I'm still rolling Metcalf, actually. Not a big fan of him necessarily, but huge fan of Russell Wilson. I mean, he's way better than Jacoby Brissett. And Tyler Lockett's doing pretty much nada. And when you're doing nada, you got to throw it to Metcalf.
Apparently my California accent sounds like Jimmy Stewart. I didn't realize that. Oh, Jacob Hollister. He's a great tight end you got to get on your roster. It's a wonderful life for Jacob Hollister.
Wasp guy dated himself, and so did you just now.
Probably. I think Wasp guy has a couple of years on me. Not many.
Wasp guy likes Pascal, actually.
I know I like Pascal this week. I still would play Metcalf. What about Tyler Lockett? I mean, he's not going to get a bagel this week, but what do you think he realistically does? Is he a double-digit scorer this week?
You know, in reality, I think it's likely, but I also think it's. I'd be very frightened. Not frightened. That's not a word I'd use. I'd be like the
skittish.
Yeah, the girl in the Peloton commercial where she's nervous about starting the Peloton. I'd be a little nervous. I'm not sure if I want to do this or not. So I think I'd be a little nervous about starting Lockett this week. I want to start somebody else.
I feel like you should be Instagram storing yourself right now and be like, oh, starting Tyler Lockett in week 14. Wish me luck.
I started Lockett 5 weeks in a row.
I started 5 weeks in a row. I can't.
No good.
Who saw this coming? Not me.
Oh, that's good.
I should bring this up. I was actually looking for a holiday gift for my wife, so I thought about making an offer on her dynasty team to acquire Tyler Lockett. And I guess my fear is like, what the hell are you thinking getting Tyler Lockett on my roster for me? What is that supposed to mean? Do you think I'm horrible at fantasy that I need Tyler Lockett?
That's funny.
Yeah, so I'm kind of with you on that. I would be a little nervous. However, in the Carrington League, Dave, I'm actually regretting this decision. I ended up starting Lockett over Michael Gallup last night.
What did Gallup end up doing? I don't even know.
6 for $109.
Yeah, that's a good score.
Yeah. He was my tiebreaker player for whatever it's worth. Final question. Gary in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I swear I'm not drunk while writing you this email, but here goes. I think I'm going to start Sam Darnold over Drew Brees this week. Do you guys sign off on that move? Which brings us to this point, Dave, that you raised at the start of the show.
Yeah, how you screwed me. Thanks.
We said and last week's guest, who, why can I not think of who it was at this time? It was. Why can I not think of who we had on the show last week?
I'm not very good at the names.
No, I am good at the names, and I can't remember who we had. I'm going to look it up. But, okay, we said start Darnold over Brady. That did not work out.
It did not.
Now this week, we're talking about Darnold over Drew Brees.
Yes.
And now how Eric Sisson, by the way, was our guest last week, Mr. Pink Stripes. I don't know how I forgot that. But we both said start Darnold over Brady. I am going to say I am signing off on this. Start Darnold over Brees. Sam Darnold this week has a prime matchup
at home,
facing the Dolphins at home. Drew Brees, not a prime matchup. He is at home, but against that 49ers defense. I'm playing Darnold.
Yeah, I actually am going to go with Darnold. And the difference with Darnold this week is last week he was at Baltimore, I believe, right?
No.
He was at the Bengals.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was at the Bengals last week, and that was supposed to be a great matchup. But, quarterbacks on the road, it's tougher. I mean, Brady was at Houston, but it's still Brady. He's a Hall of Fame quarterback.
Right.
Now Darnold's at home against, the Swiss cheese defense of the Dolphins. The Dolphins, though, I think the Jets defense kind of sucks too. So I think this game could turn into a shootout. I really do. I don't see that happening in the Saints game, and I actually could see that game being a lot lower scoring.
The total on that Dolphins-Jets game is 46, Dave. The total on that 49ers-Saints game is actually at 44.5. So to your point,
not much of a difference.
Well,
really.
not much of a difference, and the other one is the more, again, projected to be the more high-scoring game. New Orleans is a 2-point favorite in that game as well.
And right here across ABC News, AJ Klein and Kiko Alonso are out for the Saints.
AJ Klein, do you know where he went to college?
Florida State.
Iowa State.
No.
But do you know where he went to high school?
Somewhere in Wisconsin.
Kimberly High School, right down the road here.
Kimberly, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very good school for sports only.
Yes.
And for dumb kids.
Yes. No
who
question.
like to play sports.
Yes, exactly. All right, that is going to do it for our show tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Certainly want to thank our guest tonight, Charles Ellison. Appreciate him coming on 13th place in the Football Guys Players Championship. Thanks to Dave Gerzak, the FFPC, Rob Bryce, and, of course, each and every one of you. I want to just wish my mom a happy birthday. It's her birthday today.
Oh, happy birthday to Balky's mom.
Yes, happy birthday.
Eric Bachman's mom.
Yes, Erica Bachman's mom celebrating a birthday today. And
happy 39.
Yeah, we said 37 on the local show today.
Oh, you're 40.
Yeah, I know, it's funny.
Weird numbers.
Paul Friel on the High Stakes Lowdown, so check that out, rotoviz.com/podcast. Garrett Lerner is going to be our guest next week on the show, 14th place owner in the FFPC main event. Look forward to that. Your weekend, of course, starts
now. This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com that was broadcast live and heard around the world. Eric and Dave will be back next week with more analysis, interviews, and advice from a guest much smarter than they are. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk with you again next week.
We're on the Siemens floor, even more so if we on tour. Me and E explore the country, wondering about the evening before. Trying to explain where the time went, while other rappers find a studio to grind in.
Dave, good show, as always, as we head into the second week of the FFPC championship round.
It's first week.
Yeah, I guess the next time we do this show, we will be heading into the second week of the championship round. For any advice, final advice that you want to give anybody who's in the championship round for the very first time? Things that you want to do, things that you don't want to do.
Start your studs. Don't overthink it. I mean, really start your best players and
unless they're Drew Brees.
Yeah. The studs. Start the studs.
Oh, Drew Brees isn't a stud anymore?
Nope.
You know what's funny about that is Kurt and I actually had him in the Kentucky auction, and we dropped him when he got hurt earlier in the year.
Sure.
And we picked up Jacoby Brissett and Jameis Winston. We've been rolling since then.
The fact that Jameis is out there, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, no, so it's been really good since then. Hopefully we can parlay that into a title. We'll see what happens. Hey, thanks so much for listening, everybody.
Good luck.
We'll talk to you again next week. Hopefully the ball bounces your way.